So, episode number 1, maybe the only episode ever of the Snorf FNaF Podcast. I don't know what I'm going to call it. I might just call it that.
I thought you were about to say the Snorf Files.
The Snorf Files.
Yeah.
That's a cool name, but having FNaF Podcast in the name will get more traffic.
Yes.
See, now I'm thinking like a real YouTuber.
Yes.
Now I'm going to make $1 billion off of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Mm-hmm.
Snorf sweep. Anyways, so I guess I would like to take some time to explain what the hell we're actually doing here. So I've had the idea for a while. My original idea was have Brayden on and we revive our old late night FNaF talks, but profit off of them. But Brayden isn't really that available. So my new idea, I'm bringing you on because you have more time on your hands. And
yes.
And also, I want to have the ability to put more time into videos, but I also like releasing once a week too. So if we do a more like, because this type of format doesn't require a lot of editing, I just need this. Maybe I'll have to cut out things now and then, but like, there's not much I have to do. Anyways, yes. So every other week I'm thinking, instead of a normal video, it'll be one of these where me, you, maybe a third person, maybe one day Matt Pat will join us.
Yes, for sure.
Matt Pat, Rye Toast, John FNaF. Wow. Maybe one day. I'm not really sure. Who knows? Maybe like 5 people actually watch this video and like, oh, maybe that's not such a good idea. But yeah. So specifically today, we want, well, at least I want to. I just kind of dragged you into it. Want to do predictions for the FNaF movie. Because as of this video releasing, well, we're recording this on Tuesday, but this video will go up on Sunday. And so it'll be less than a week until the FNaF movie.
Yes.
So.
All right.
I wanted to start off with a more deep thought, interesting topic. So recently, the movie's director, Emma Tammy, that's her name, I think, said that there's at least, I don't know if she said at least one or just exactly one FNaF character that is in the movie that has neither been shown nor teased. And I wanted to ask you, who do you think that is?
Like a character, presumably from the games. Like they didn't just make up a character.
Yeah, presumably one that we know of. But she didn't specifically say the games. It could be from the books.
Okay. There's a lot of options there. But I guess the first thing that comes to my mind, because this really was the first character that was surrounded in mystery in this game, was Golden Freddy. Because I was wondering if they were going to put him in there, but there's many possibilities.
I have terrible news for you. We already know Golden Freddy's in the movie.
We do?
Yeah, have you seen the trailers?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the scene in the taxi with Abby and...
Oh, he's in there?
Yeah, that's the end. That's not Freddy, that's Golden Freddy. He has got the blue eye and the... Yeah.
I was gonna watch the trailers before this to make sure I was fresh, and then I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
How embarrassing.
Since I'm an encyclopedia to recap, because this might help you narrow your options down. We know Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Golden Freddy, Spring Bonnie. I'm hesitant to say Spring Trap because it's like half. And there's also a poster of Balloon Boy, or a drawing of Balloon Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why she said neither shown nor teased, because we haven't seen Balloon Boy, but like kind of hinted
The
at
most important character.
the most important. You know, in Matt Pat's theory, he says that the fifth kid actually possesses the cupcake. Could be Balloon Boy. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Yes.
Anyways, that's the characters we know.
Okay. You know, I don't know. There's literally dozens of characters. And I'm hesitant. I've already made one mistake.
Oh yeah, there's a strike system here. 3 strikes.
Yeah.
It's just me on this podcast now.
Yes. Hmm.
Now, there's a pretty obvious answer I thought you'd go for immediately, given it's one of your favorite characters.
Oh, the puppet?
Yes. I was
Yeah,
about to gesture to my statue.
That would make more sense. Because that's a pretty, like, important part of the story.
Like, don't get me wrong, Balloon Boy is, he's up there in importance, but the puppet.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
you have to think that that fifth kid that's a little bit more ambiguous who they are has a striped shirt on. So maybe it's like a weird thing where, because obviously I don't think the movie's in the same continuity as the games. Already people will be jumping on me for claiming such a, making such a strong claim. But I do think Matt Pat's on the right track in saying that Golden Freddy is that kid getting taken away in the car in the flashback.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the puppet, because another thing with the trailers is there's that wall with the drawings on them, and some of them are totally blank, which leads me to believe that there's something on one of those drawings that we're not being shown yet. So I think the puppet might be a surprise character. And also there's like the important mythos of like the puppet being responsible for the hauntings to begin with. They might go into that, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely answer.
But, and this came to me in a vision.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps Scott Cawthon directly fed this into my brain.
Oh, yes.
But we'll get into later what we think like will actually happen in the movie. But I think that the movie is going to end with Abby being taken away. Like, I don't think this movie's having a good ending.
No.
I think Abby is going to be taken away by Afton. And if there is a post-credit scene, there's a chance we might see Baby.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a possibility.
And I guess we can move on to my next question because of this. And that was, if there are sequels, what do you think they will be about?
Mm-hmm. That's a hard question to answer. Because we already don't really know much about... I mean, we do know, like, a bit of the structure, but we don't really know exactly what kind of story they're going to tell here.
Yeah, and especially with the runtime being an hour 50 minutes. Like, yeah, you're right. As much as they've shown, we still really don't know. Like, obviously, we know it's about Mike getting a security job at Freddy's. A police officer named Vanessa is there. Probably not the same Vanessa from Security Breach. I don't know. But yeah.
They like to reuse names in this series.
Waiting for a Jeremy to show up.
For real.
But I don't know, I was just thinking that because a few years ago, Scott said in an interview that he'd want the first movie to focus around FNaF 1, the second movie to do FNaF 2, and then have a third one to cap off the series with FNaF 3. Like, he sees that as, like, the true trilogy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with that, though, is that is before they settled on the Mike script. Like, he did this Reddit post about all the scripts they went through and how they finally got to the one about Mike, and they're like, okay, this one sounds good. So, and I was also, because, you know, in Pizzeria Simulator, there's kind of a weird thing where even though Afton is a character, he's kind of pushed to the back, and like the main villain of that game is treated to be Elizabeth. Because the game opens with Baby at the desk, and then she's the person to give like her short speech before Henry's. And so I kind of had this thought for a while that like if Scott had the foresight of what the series would become from the beginning, the first 3 games would be about Freddy's as they are, and then both 4 and 5 would be about circus babies, and then 6 would tie both storylines together.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially since Abby is a character, and okay, this is a little about. Some people have said that Abby could be a shortened name of Elizabeth, like the Ab part of Elizabeth. But also, if you rearrange the letters in Abby, you get baby. So, so I don't know if you know this, but in one of the trailers in the background, people notice that Withered Foxy's head is in one of the rooms. I don't know what that's about. So I can see a good case of it being FNaF 2. But from a story, like Abby's involvement, because I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much about the games. But, you know, if the story is about Mike, and like Mike's the focus, FNaF 1, FNaF 2, we don't really know. FNaF 3, we don't really know. Well, FNaF 4 would be too complicated for a movie, I think. Sister Location, I think, was kind of made to be a movie. It's a horrible game from a gameplay perspective, but from a story perspective, it's really good. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking and let you say what you think.
Well, something that I had always kind of expected from the movies is it kind of goes along with the debate that always happens with the books, where it's like sometimes people don't want to separate like the fact that it can be in the same universe as the games, but it's a different like canon, I guess. And I always kind of imagine that the movies, they might have like this, like the same characters, or similar at least, and has a similar story, but it's kind of shuffled around and retold in a different order and kind of with a different conclusion, kind of like what happens sometimes with book to movie adaptations. Like, I don't think that the movies are going to follow the storyline of the games that closely, but I think it's going to share some of like the core elements. Cuz honestly, I don't know if it's like is it going to be like productive to attempt to tie it back to the games every time, cuz I think that's something that happens with all the forms of media that this series has gone across. It's like I think it's kind of like with the books, where the books are a tool and they do share similar like ideas. Like there's the mimic and there's remnant. There's stuff that we wouldn't know. There's stuff we wouldn't know initially. We know it in the books and then it's in the games, you know?
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
like
we learned Afton's name from and
yeah.
Henry's name before they
Yeah.
got named in the books. Or the
So it's
games.
like, it's like, is it like, do we really need to look at it that closely? Or is it might just be more important to recognize this is in the same universe, but
I do think it's a case of, and again, I feel this way about the books. People don't like that I think this way about the books, but I think there's stories being told in in the canon of FNaF, and by that I mean it's using the rules of the universe that the games are in, but it's putting them in a separate continuity just so it doesn't step on the toes of the games. Because there are a lot of fun story. I don't know if you've read the books, but there are a lot of fun stories that can be told with like the rule set of this universe. But like at the same time, the game lore is such, like it's so highly monitored by the community that if like I feel the story writers are kind of constricted in a way where they may want to tell a story with that world, but they can't without stepping on the toes of something else. So they push it into another continuity. And yeah, I think I think the game I think knowing what FNaF 1 was, like I don't think there's any question that the movie will be a separate continuity. That being said, I think there might be like key story beats that are consistent across both. And while you were talking, I did come to the realization that the first 4 games, if you look at them, weren't really a story at all. Like starting with Sister Location, the games actually did start telling a story. Like their characters, um, you know, the dead child, Sister Location is about actually as character and isn't just like someone we knew existed. So now I am kind of going back on the track that I do think they would do 1, 2, 3 on the account that those 3 games, as they came out, didn't really have a chance to actually be a story. That's kind of a debate going on right now of whether FNaF should be looked at as a puzzle or as a story. And I'm in the boat that the first 4 games retroactively became a story once Sister Location came out. Um, did you read the books, by the way? Thought I should ask
no,
you.
I don't have them.
Oh. Well, do you know anything about like the original trilogy, for example?
I know little elements of it.
Do you know the bit about Charlie being a robot? Well, like many
Yeah,
robots?
yeah,
So I saw an interesting analysis from someone else that the entire thing of the multiple Charlie bots is an allegory for the FNaF games, where the first 3 turned out fine, the 4th one not so much, and because it didn't turn out so well, that led to the creation of Baby, and then everything that became of that. And I thought that was a cool interpretation. Um, and so I'm wondering if Scott is treating these movies like as a second chance to actually tell a story with the first few games.
yes. I think that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Mhm. And just to be clear, it's a story not to replace those games,
Hmm.
but to work with like their settings and stuff and actually tell a
Hmm.
story with them. Because again, looking at the first 3 games, like it's simple, but again, it's not really a story. Like there aren't really characters. Like we don't know anyone's name other than the night guards. Um, it's more so like a bullet list of things that have happened. And there are really no stakes in anything because everything that has happened has already happened. If that makes sense. Now it's
Hmm.
different with these movies because characters, locations, stakes, things like that. But yeah. So I wouldn't be I don't know, because it does feel like they're hinting at Baby with Abby. Maybe we're just looking too far into it. But I would be interested to see how they'd fit that in. If because Matthew Lillard said it's a 3-picture deal, which is kind of what Scott implied he'd want to do if he does make sequels. Anyways, do you have anything else to add, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. So my next thing was the cameos in the movie.
Yes.
So we already know that some FNaF YouTubers like Daco and 8-Bit Ryan, those types, they're on like a employees of the month board. And I think that's cool. I think that's neat.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of them trying to really make this movie for the fans. I think they tried to get as many as they could.
Mm-hmm. And also, Corey X Kenshin is the taxi driver.
Yes.
I think he actually it's just Corey Kenshin. The X is just in his username. This is a totally different topic, but there's 2 big boys that are unaccounted for.
Yeah.
There's Markiplier and there's MatPat.
Yes, I saw it happen live.
Yeah, you were the one. I got my news from you this time with Markiplier. If you have anything to say about him.
Yeah, well, I'm sure as everyone knows, he got on stream to play a FNaF fan game. That was it's basically like a free roam FNaF game, but he really got on there to kind of announce that he's saying on the record that he is not going to be in the FNaF movie. He was supposed to, but the production of his own movie was happening at the same exact time, and neither party was able to work around it. And I believe he actually said that Scott told him to say something so people wouldn't be disappointed when they saw he wasn't in it. And some people think that he's lying, but he seemed very genuine about it. I don't think that he would lie about that.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but Scott himself actually commented on the stream saying, "Hey, yeah, sorry we couldn't get him in, but if we do a sequel, we're hoping we can."
Yeah.
I don't know. That just feels like a weird thing to lie about. Like, no, he's not in the movie.
Yeah.
And then he's in the movie, and it's like, cool.
I feel like he wouldn't have said anything because he said that he wanted to. Like, he kind of implied it a few times in previous videos, but he just wasn't able to make it work. And some people are like surprised by that, but like we've seen in his past projects that he's very dedicated to his own film projects. And it was a big one. It's a lot of work to make a movie, so
yeah, Iron Lung is, I'm pretty sure he said it's on track to like beat the record of the amount of blood in a horror movie, which makes sense.
Yes, he's very excited about that.
Yeah, I still need to play Iron Lung. I've heard it's not very long.
It's very good. It's very good.
Yeah. Now MatPat. No one's talking about MatPat.
I don't know what he's said, to be honest. I haven't watched his videos in a minute.
MatPat hasn't said much. All I've heard him say is like when he saw that Corey was the taxi driver and that the other YouTubers are on the employees board. He was on stream and I think he said something like, "Oh, good for you guys." Like he did sound kind of like left out. But and
they would not skip MatPat.
Well, there's also something else you have to keep in mind. Unlike, and feel free to fact check me on this, I'm not sure, but all of the YouTubers on that board aren't like actors. MatPat had his start in theater. Like his earliest videos on that channel are like before he became the game theory guy. He was, I think, like a traveling actor on like shows and stuff. And I think Oh,
I was just gonna say I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that he has a degree in theater, something like that.
yeah, I feel like he has a double major of like
He does, like
theater and
psychology.
no, not like statistics,
It
because
was something related to that type of field. Let's
I
see.
I don't know if you know this, but for a long time, MatPat was like an advisor for like Smosh, for example. He talked about that in Anthony Padilla's.
No, I was right. Double major in theater and neuroscience.
Oh, right, it was neuroscience. Weird. I wonder how he got into statistics though, or like, I guess
Statistics are a very big part of
maybe you just
psychology.
don't. I guess you might not need a degree for that. I'm not sure. But anyways, so the reason why I was on the fence for both Mark and Matt up until yesterday when Mark said, "Hey, I'm not doing it," is because unlike those other YouTubers, um, both of them are actors. Like Mark has In Space, a heist, and Iron Lung, which is coming out. And he's even said in the past that he wouldn't just want like a cameo, he'd want like an actual role in the movie. And I feel like Matt Pat's in a similar boat where like he is an actor. You could just give him like an actual role. But really my question here is like, how would you feel about that? Like Mark or Matt having like not necessarily a major role, but like not a background role, I guess.
Well, Mark is one thing, but I feel like, I mean, I haven't really seen him act. I'm sure that he's good at it, but like I feel like Matt Pat, he's so distinct with like the way he talks. Like you would watch that and you would say that's Matt Pat. You wouldn't say like, oh, that's that character. Like you would not, it would be very hard to separate the two. At least Markiplier, I feel like he's definitely got a lot of distinct stuff about him, but I've seen more things that he's acted in. Um, so it would be, I feel like it would be kind of hard to do that. But I still feel like they wouldn't simply pass up Matt Pat. Like I feel like the only way would be if he said that he couldn't do it, kind of like with Mark.
Yeah. And I'm in a similar boat because I know for a while people were pretty much, and this is not to discredit or put down anyone's ideas, but a movie that is just a series of like, oh, that's Daco, oh, that's Markiplier. That's not a good movie. That's
No.
just a series of references, and but like I feel like a lot of people wanted that. Like they want
Mhm.
Markiplier to play the main night guard, and for me at least, I feel like that would break the immersion. Cause like, yeah, Mark's
Mhm.
an actor, Matt's an actor, but just their like relation to the series in specific, like it isn't even about their presence or their acting to begin with. Like I'm sure they're good actors. It's just the very knowledge that they're so strongly associated with the series outside of the movie. Like I don't think I'd be able to get immersed in the movie because I'd just be thinking, huh, it's Matt Pat.
You know what it is, I think, is that within the lore, not the lore, but within the world of FNaF, they already have a role. Like they have a role in this as a theorist, as a gamer, you know, a player. And they wouldn't be able it would be weird to see them have a different role within this world. Cuz like with Josh Hutcherson, almost everyone looks at him and is like, "Hey yo, that's PETA from Hunger Games."
Mhm.
Or even Matthew Lillard, like that's Shaggy or whatever. Like you know them for other stuff, but they're not involved in FNaF previously, so it will be quite easy to look at them and say, "Oh, that's Mike" or
Mhm.
whatever. But Matt, Pat, and Mark, they already have a different role within it, you know?
And, I just noticed something really, really funny. We never introduced ourselves to the audience. Well, I'm Brent Snorf. I've been making videos for like a couple months. I don't know. Maybe I'll put like
Oh,
a card.
yeah.
We can just call you, and I don't know.
Well, already I've been assigned the name Liv Snorf.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We can stick with Liv Snorf.
Yes. Yeah, I'm Olivia.
Just
Uh,
Olivia.
yeah. Yeah. I I'm not a YouTuber, but I I played the first game when it when it came out on mobile.
Hey, I remember you doing a Let's Play on Five Nights at Candy's. Don't tell me you're not a YouTuber.
That's true. Uh, yeah,
Anyways,
that was good stuff.
yeah, honestly, I'll probably just I'm probably just gonna make like a fancy display for the actual video. I'll just put our names, pronouns, whatever underneath our faces. I'm still including this in because it's funny that took me this long to notice. Hey, they have
I
no idea who I'm talking to. Right?
I had thought about that, but it's okay.
Anyways, so yeah, I guess that aside, summary of our last segment. A movie that is just a sequence of cameos is not a movie. Um, well, actually, because I'm sure you've seen that funny post going around that's like, the credits stop rolling. It pulls back up to a scene at like the police at Freddy's. They're like, oh, what happened here? And then you see Matthew Patrick turn around and say, I have a theory. Cut to black. And on one hand, that would be really funny. But at the same time, that might just like, oh, I'm not immersed anymore. But at that point, like, the movie's over, so it doesn't I don't know. How would you feel about that?
That would be funny. I guess cuz I I'll go on the record and say that I've done a little theater in my time. And even though theater is different than a film, they both still have the same thing in common, which is the suspension of your disbelief. And even though sometimes things like that can be really funny, it doesn't work in everything. It usually has to be something where it's kind of like the humor that runs throughout the production that is uh like kind of breaking the fourth wall, like kind of involving, I guess, the audience. Or if it's a certain character where that's kind of the thing they do. But if it's the very end, you have to be real careful. Cause then that could just make everything totally fall apart. But that would be really funny.
It would be, but I'm just saying, because back in the day, I was a Marvel fan. And by back in
Yeah.
the day, mean like up to a few years ago.
Yes.
And like, one of the last movies of the MCU that I watched was Multiverse of Madness. And I was really excited for that movie because I really liked the Scarlet Witch. I didn't really like the movie's pacing, and I thought the things that happened in it were weird from a story perspective. But something that is burned into my mind. Now, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but like the post credit scene, because it was directed by Sam Raimi, and Sam Raimi has Bruce Campbell in like every single movie he's made. So, like all of the old Spider-Man movies, Evil Dead, obviously. Uh, eating my hair. Anyways, so of course Bruce Campbell is in this game, this movie. Post credit scene. Bruce Campbell looks directly into the camera and says, "It's over." And that scene has haunted me for like the past 2 years. Because already, as we were getting to the end of the movie, I was like, I'm not very happy with this. And it's just kind of the thing of like, one, it's funny in the context of the movie. But two, the only thing I remember of this movie now is the fact that Bruce Campbell looks into the camera at the end and says, "It's over." So, I don't know. Like, I'd love to see Matt Pett in the movie. I think he deserves to be in it. But it has to be subtle. Like, yes, it doesn't even have to be a cameo. You could give him like a character. But you cannot be so obvious. You cannot. I think, and we'll get into this in a bit, but I think this movie will need some level of self-awareness to be good. But I think
that's kind of the humor of the series sometimes.
I mean, yeah, think of Sister Location and Six and Security Breach. A lot of the humor comes from Hand Unit talking a lot about like legal disclaimers and corporate things like that. And also a lot of the self-awareness has to come from the actual like the events going on. I think to have self-awareness to a level of, oh, there's this community outside of the series, and in that community there's this guy who does theories. That's a little bit too self-aware to a point where like all immersion gone. And it really is that case of like funny versus feeling satisfied leaving the movie. Do you have anything to add in that regard?
There was something that I was gonna say, and now I can't remember what it is.
Because I can't stop talking. Oh.
I think that with these cameos, these people that we know a lot about, like you have to only give them one line. Like just something where they're there for such a brief amount of time that you're like, oh hey, it's Matt Pat, and then it's already on to the next thing. Like it's not something that like lingers. And that's why they wouldn't really be able to have a role in the movie. I don't think that they would do that. I think that they're smart enough to know that that just isn't really something they should do. Unless, I mean, they're the experts, so I guess we can hope that whatever they do will work.
At the end of the day, I don't know a thing about making movies or really about making games. I just know I like silly Freddy Five Night and the things around it. I will say, I did say there are two big guys, but there's one I forgot to mention. Probably the biggest guy of them all. Do we think Scott Cawthon will have a cameo in the movie? And if he does, what would that entail?
I don't know. But first, I feel like it could work. There are many directors and the like that do something similar. Because since they're behind the scenes, not enough people know what they look like that they notice. It might be something you like read on Twitter later, like, hey, did you catch that like he was in the background of the scene? Like I think John Green was in the Fault in Our Stars movie. I believe that the director of The Lord of the Rings makes a yes, he's in at least one of them. But like that's something like you might not know what they look like before that.
Just so people don't tear me apart, I wasn't saying Stan Lee was the director of the Lord of the Rings movie. I was saying Stan Lee shows up in. Well, the only reason, because when you were talking about like cameos where they're only like given one line and it just made me think of my favorite cameo of all time, and that is in the 2015 Goosebumps movie, where Jack Black playing R.L. Stine is walking down the halls of the school, and another teacher comes by and says, "Hello, Mr. Stine," and he says, "Hello, Mr. Black." And Mr. Black is actually R.L. Stine. What I love about that cameo is I only half got the joke. I recognized it was R.L. Stine, but okay, I was kind of a dumb kid at the time. I was in like 5th grade, 6th grade, I don't remember. But when I got to the car, my siblings were like, his name was Mr. Black because like Jack Black. It's like, oh, right. Because some people are talking about like Phone Guy being in the movie. And I'm not really sure, because I feel like that lady we've been seeing in like the training tapes will kind of fill that role of Phone Guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't believe I forgot about like trying to remember like directors and stuff like that have been in movies. I forgot about Stan Lee. Like literally the master of that.
The king of cameos.
Like that is like you just like no one else can do it like that. Like,
and as much as I would love to see, because there's kind of this joke in the community that Scott Cawthon can't be caught moving on camera, because we have pictures of him, but like no video of him moving. I made a joke that was like, it's a cruel fate that as an animator, he has no animations. If we do see him moving, he'll be like sliding around on a pose. But if I'm being real, I don't know if he will. I don't know if he will be, just because he strikes me as the person not very comfortable with like.
Yeah.
But like when FNaF Plus, I don't know if you know what FNaF Plus was, but it was essentially a remake, an officially recognized remake made by a fan that was being made. It had problems and is no longer being made. But while it was being made, he was like, hey, Scott, do you want to reprise your role as Phone Guy? And he declined, which kind of gives me the feeling that him being Phone Guy in the first place was more so out of like necessity. Because in that time, maybe he just didn't have access to voice actors and whatnot. And maybe now that that ship has sailed, we'll not see Scott in another official thing again. I don't know.
Yeah, because now we have like hand unit and like stuff like that. The only time we hear Phone Guy is just reused recordings, but he's almost never in there. The only time he like had his picture in the VR game.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Which like I feel like everybody recognizes that photo. So like that was like silly and stuff. I feel like if like some developers would totally do it, but I don't know if he's really the type. Like I kind of agree that it doesn't seem like it's his personality to be like, yeah, I want to put myself in there.
Because like unlike, again, going back to our R.L. Stine example, people kind of knew what, like people know what Scott looks like, but his face I don't think is very prevalent. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think he's like as noticeable by a general audience. Which again, this movie's more for the fans anyways. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm hesitant on that. Some people have pointed out that, because I don't know if you saw this, but Universal made like a fake website that was like in the universe of the movie that was like, oh, look at all these cool relics or photos we still have of that old Freddy's place. And at the bottom, I think it says it's made by like someone who just calls himself Phone Guy. Maybe it is Phone Guy. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. I really like the idea that Phone Dude from FNaF 3 is the new CEO of Fazbear Entertainment. That's totally unrelated to the movie, though. On maybe a couple of these from now, we need to talk about the modern lore.
Yeah.
People have asked me to make like a video like summarizing the new stuff. And I think I might do that because I do think it's important to get people caught up. I know you specifically have asked. My problem with it is just I'd need people to go into it with the understanding I may not be as accurate as I was for the old games, just because we're still figuring out the new stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you go back and look at old videos about like when the 4th game came out, and people were like, "Okay, now I have a master timeline," and it's like we still had no idea what was going on because again, it wasn't really a story. But I think, I guess this is kind of a separate point. People are very critical lately. I mean, it's always kind of been a thing, but I think there's a lot of criticism for creators because everyone expects everyone to know everything and be right about everything.
Yeah, it's because there are some cases where, like, yeah, I get, like, I understand when people get mad when people seem to be sharing misleading or flat out wrong information. I get that. But there have been some cases where people just like take a clip from one of Matt Pat's streams where he says something that probably isn't right and then puts it on Twitter. It's like, oh, this Matt Pat guy really doesn't know what he's talking about. And my problem with that is when he's on stream, none of that is scripted. He doesn't have writers behind him. He's just like talking from what he knows. And with Matt Pat in specific, he's a busy guy. He doesn't like he talks a lot about FNaF, but like he has a wife, he has kids, or maybe just one kid. I know he was actually on Broadway or something this past year. Something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
And, well, actually, it's also, I don't know if you've watched Rytoast, but he does like a podcast type thing too. And it's the same thing where it's not scripted, but like people take clips from that where he says something wrong. Like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And the problem with that is like, not everyone, like, I'm a person who I think has like encyclopedic knowledge of FNaF, but you have to recognize not everyone has that. And I know a lot of people like on Twitter, on Reddit, do kind of have that same like encyclopedic like perspective. But not only do you not have to have that to talk about these games, a lot of people just don't. Because they're spending their time on other things. And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think that this has been like a series for so long. Like, it has kind of like taken on a new form where it's like it's not just theorizing about a game. It's like this is a lifestyle. So you better be right about it.
Yeah. I realized we kind of got sidetracked. This has nothing to do with the movie at all, but I do think it's a good talking point. Yeah, you are right, though. I do think, like, I can't deny FNaF has been my special interest since it came out. Like, it's the one thing I can't let go of. But, and this may surprise a lot of people since I make videos on FNaF, I don't take it that seriously. Like, I have opinions on it, and I'll talk about my opinions, but like I'm not ready to die for Freddy Fazbear. I don't care that much.
Come on.
Like, you know, I did a video on why I don't think the books are in the game's continuity. If I'm wrong about that, cool. I don't really care all that much. I have other things to do. I'm in college. I have classes to get to. I have like, I don't know, programs to program. And I think a lot of people, I think people taking it too seriously ruins the fun for a lot of people. Because it kind of builds an environment where you're kind of conditioning people to think that you can only be a fan of the series if it's like the only thing you care about. And that just isn't very good.
Yeah, I think that kind of thing happens with a lot of fan bases. I think it's important, though, I guess, to remember that, like, since this does happen with everything, it's just like a very loud minority. Like, I think the majority of the FNaF community is very like welcoming and nice. Like I think that like something that everybody can kind of agree on is like how much we all love to just like pick apart this weird stuff and like it's like, oh, we have so many games and we have so many books to read and like there's gonna be a cookbook, like how fun. And like I think most people, like, even if you take it as seriously as any other thing you enjoy, but you're not like being like you're like you're stupid. You are stupid as a person because you don't know this thing.
And I hate to generalize. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but a lot of the people in my comment section who do kind of get on my case for not being in it, like especially when it comes to the books, ironically, they are guilty of not paying attention when I say things. I don't know how many times on this channel I've said, oh, I actually really like the books. And then I see people, like especially in some of the Discords, people will talk about my video, and that's cool. And if people don't like them, that's fine. I'm not going to say anything that everyone agrees with. That's just kind of part of the process. But I hate it when people like pull up the As It Was series and they're like, this series is cool, but it's kind of stupid how this guy just hates the books, you know? Like, I just doesn't like it. It wasn't the point. The reason why I don't talk about the books is to simplify things. Because that series is designed to either get people back into the games or to get new people caught up with the games. And
what's the games as they were?
As they were, yeah. That's another part of it too. I don't know. People are very, like on my most recent video about the Mimic and Burn Trap, someone recently left a comment of like, oh, I thought Burn Trap just wasn't canon. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But I explained why I'm still talking about it like 5 seconds into the video. But anyways, we've gotten way sidetracked. We're still supposed to talk about the movie. And I kind of wanted to circle back to our topic real quick about the secret character that will be in the movie. Because I forgot to specify. She didn't say animatronic, she just said character. So it could be Phone Guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, one, do you think it's Phone Guy? And two, if it is, do you think it is like Scott's Phone Guy?
I don't think it's Phone Guy. Even if it's not the puppet, I feel like we're definitely going to see the puppet at some point in this series. Because, like, that's pretty important. Like, I don't think that's something where you're like, well, this isn't really that important to the story. We're just not going to put it in the movies.
Yeah, and it's like the puppet is one of those things that you just kind of have to have in any of the storyline. Like, I will say the puppet doesn't appear in the Silver Eyes books, but at the same time, Charlotte is the main character. So in a way, it's like who the puppet actually is still there. Yeah, I totally think it's the puppet, and that probably explains the black and white stripe. Actually, I don't know if it's black and white stripes. Don't quote me on that, but at least dark color and light color stripes. I don't know, but I am excited to see how it looks because in the right context, I think the puppet's one of those characters that like is genuinely creepy.
Well, I'm excited to see what the turnout will be for this movie because, like, I know that these communities don't overlap probably that much, but I am a big football fan, and every night at prime time, the FNaF trailer comes up, and it's like, yo, it's happening.
Yeah,
so
Freddy Fazbear
I'm
will
very
get a
excited.
touchdown.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how just like how many people go see it, like how much money it's gonna make, just like all the little statistical things about it. That's fun. Um, and I'm very excited to be in a theater full of the people who like that type of person. It's very exciting.
I hope, because I know everyone in our group's going to have an outfit, but I hope to
Yeah.
go to that theater and everyone has their own like FNaF fit of some kind.
Yeah, well,
And
I mean, it's been happening for the movies lately. People dress up, and I think that it's a lot of fun. I love to dress up. So,
yeah,
I hope to see a lot of other people do it.
I'm excited to put on my glitch trap / William Afton fit. Um,
Mhm.
anyways, that aside, so my next question, and I wrote these down like late last night. This question isn't very good, so I want to expand upon it. It was
Okay.
just, do you think the movie will be good? But I think it might be better to talk about like, do you think, because they've mentioned it's like it has horror, comedy, and camp elements.
Mhm.
And I guess the better question to ask is, how do you think they'll realistically balance those three elements? And how do you think people will react to that balance?
Okay, here's the thing. FNaF, we've been waiting for a FNaF movie for a very long time. There are definitely gonna be people who are disappointed no matter what happens. I don't think I will be one of those people, even though I have been waiting for a long time. I think I'll be happy with pretty much anything. I think before I wasn't sure because I was thinking it will depend on if they're making it more with fans in mind or with newcomers in mind. And they said they have the fans in mind, which I think is a good sign. I think it will probably share a similar sense of humor to the games where it's kind of self-aware, but it's not impeding on the experience. Like it doesn't ruin the horror of it. Because sometimes if like there's too much comedy, it kind of detracts from the horror element of a horror movie. Um, I think I'm optimistic. I think that a majority of people will be happy, but I think that there will definitely be some things like, I don't think anybody's gonna be 100% happy with it. I think there are going to be issues for everyone in different ways.
And I like that they use those three words specific of horror, comedy, and camp,
I love
because
camp
I
for
don't
that.
know, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a big fan of the Child's Play series. And
Mm,
that series is like the, I don't know what you call it, like the gold standard of finding out the balance of those three things. Because the
mhm.
first movie is pretty much purely a horror movie. The second movie is too. I really like the second one. The third one kind of gets into campy-ish territory and comedy. The middle two movies are just like pretty much the horror's kind of gone and it's more so about campiness. And then when they finally brought the series back, I feel like they finally learned how to balance those things. Um like I have watching what 7 movies and 2 and a currently ongoing season of the TV show. I have seen how to do that balance right and how to do that balance wrong. And I think the balance totally depends on the audience. Like I don't think the same balance for Chucky would work for FNaF, just because Chucky's more so for adults. FNaF is more so like I don't know, like a teenage audience, I guess. Young adult. Is that the term they
Yeah.
are using these days? Um I'm thinking they have to make us take the animatronics seriously, but not so seriously that it's ridiculous. Well, like
Mhm.
you told me the other week how you think it's funny how in the trailers they say their name so ominously, like Freddy, Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie. I don't know. I think I don't know what the balance will be, but I think if they're able to get the same balance, well, I wouldn't really say Sister Location had campiness in it, but it did have that comedy element in it, and I think if they can strike a similar balance that they had in that game, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think the fact that they used camp to describe it is fun. I think that it leads me to believe that they're very aware of the fact that like people already have opinions about these characters and they've been like memed into oblivion. And so like they're not in the first game. They were quite scary and intimidating, but now it's like they've like, you know, been able to they've been given personalities by the fans. And I think they're aware that it is a little silly sometimes, but I feel like they're going to do a pretty good job at making us kind of scared of these characters again.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up their personalities because I still wholeheartedly believe that one of like the unspoken scary aspects of the first game is when it came out, there's kind of that subconscious knowing of like these animatronics are supposed to be like cartoon characters, but we have no idea what those characters actually are. Like that part of them is totally gone. I mean, we know Foxy is a pirate, but that's about it. Like it's such a weird like hodgepodge of theming with those characters because like Bonnie has an electric guitar, Chica is a cupcake, Freddy's got a top hat and a bow tie, and like that's another weird thing to me.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a band, but only Bonnie has an instrument.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever watched the Freddy and Friends cartoons that released before Security Breach, but at least my interpretation is Freddy's the main singer. I think that's obvious. Chica's supposed to be like a background singer. And in the cartoons, Foxy has an accordion. That's not in FNaF 1. So I do wonder if, like, canonically, and if we'll see this in the movie, he does use an accordion. It's just we never saw it in that first game because he's either, like, concealed by the curtain of Pirate's Cove, or he's running down the hall to come get us.
He's also out of order.
Yeah. That's another thing, because in the Freddy and Friends cartoon, like, he has, like, a pirate. Like, he has, like, a purple pirate coat and, like, a pirate hat. He doesn't have that in FNaF 1. And I do wonder if that's another, like, canon thing, or, like, he does have that. Normally, it's just, we never see it in FNaF 1, because, like, they've taken all of those props off of him to work on him. I don't know. It might be cool to see. I'm not really sure if that'll be in the movie, though. Even with that, though, it is a weird, like, mix, because, like, even then, you have, like, 3 stage performers, and then a pirate. I never really got that. Maybe you're not supposed to think that hard about it. I personally always thought that, like, because, like, if you did you ever go to Chuck E. Cheese as a kid?
Yeah.
Because at Chuck E. Cheese, like, all of the characters are, like, friends, and they're part of a band. I wonder if in, like, the shows in the, like, FNaF universe, it was supposed to be Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica are a band, and then Foxy is like the villain of the shows or something. I don't really know.
That could be. Yeah, I wonder how. I mean, I'm sure that there's information somewhere, but it does kind of make you wonder, like, how Scott came up with the game in the first place. And, like, all the little things about it, like that, like, deciding what these characters are going to be, because like a bunny, a chicken, and a bear, and a fox. It's like those are kind of all forest animals, but it is weird.
And what's funny is whenever someone has asked Scott, like, how do you come up with these characters? How do you come up with the designs? The answer almost every time is, it's just what came to mind.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure Daco asked him, like, why did you choose a bear, a bunny, a chicken, and a fox? And he essentially said that, like, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, yeah, just those three, like, immediately came to him. The only one of them that actually required any, like, further thought was Foxy. He was going to do a wolf. He was going to do a beaver, but he decided not to do the beaver because of
Yeah.
its relation to Chipper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just one of those things that, like I genuinely believe something mystical went on to make FNaF happen, because Springtrap is such a cool design for the main, like, villain, or like the main
Mm-hmm.
monster of the series. And Scott in the past has said, "Oh, that was just the first design I did." Like, it just came to him immediately. It's like, cool.
It is kind of funny to have a rabbit as a villain. The rabbit is always the villain,
I mean,
pretty
yeah,
much.
and
But it's kind of a silly animal.
well, it's because, like, it's the symbol of a trickster in
Mm-hmm.
mythology and stuff. Like, you know, the mascot of Tricks is a rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
Trickster. Actually, I wonder if that's what they intended or if I'm looking too into it. But, like, the Matrix has rabbit imagery, um, and what that's another thing about Spring. Again, we're getting off topic, but that's what happens with me. You start talking about something FNaF related, and I just have to, like, spill all my thoughts on it. Hey, for
Yeah.
the audience, that's why so many of my videos, it's just like every other scene has, like, text on screen, because it's the battle between me while recording and me while watching through my recording. There's just so much I want to add to everything. I don't know why. But the thing with Bonnie in specific is I don't even know if it's about, like, the trickster symbolism, or if it's just that God has gone on record to say that Bonnie has always been the scariest to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of a weird topic. So I've already implied I'm kind of excited to see Foxy in the movie, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to, like, learn, like, what the in-universe role of Foxy was in the band. If they'll even show that, they might just not. But something else I thought was interesting is Emma Tammy and Jason Blum have both, when asked, said that Chica is their favorite. And that's weird to me because Chica's always been, like, the one that's like, she's just kind of there. Up
Yeah.
into, like, I will say, Glamrock Chica is my favorite security breach animatronic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, like, the first time a Chica has ever been my favorite out of a set. And I wonder if part of that is, like, the tag team thing they're going to have with the Cupcake and Chica. Oh, what, as a chicken fan yourself, what do you think about Chica? And what do you think she'll bring to this movie?
Well, yeah, that is true. Chica has always been the one, like all the other characters. I mean, obviously there's a million versions of Freddy, and there's a ton of rabbits. And then, like, Foxy, there's the Foxies, and then there's, like, Roxanne Wolf and stuff like that. And Chica, there's no other chickens in the FNaF universe. It's only Chica. And I think maybe they're going it's possible that maybe they tried to give them all a more even role, because Chica is always the one that's left out. Like like Freddy's the main character, like, in the band. And then, like, Bonnie, there's, like, Spring Bonnie, and like there's a story there. There's also, like, whatever's going on with Glamrock Bonnie and Monty and stuff. And then Foxy, he's kind of got his own thing going on. There's, like, the mini game where, like, he runs out to the children. And it, like, cuz I always kind of imagined Foxy's, like, the kids can either watch the main band or they can go over and see him do a little show. Like I imagine it's kind of like a little comedy show type thing. Um, and Chica doesn't really get anything. So
Yeah,
and maybe they like her because she's underrated or something.
I saw this. I doubt this is real because I'm pretty sure we've seen like the full FNaF 1 building. But I saw this cool interpretation that Pirates Cove isn't just like the stage Foxy's on, but it's like this other room where like arcade machines and stuff are, and Foxy's kind of stationed in there. I think that would be cool. Unfortunately, I don't think that's how it is in the actual game. I'm not really sure though.
Yeah, I think he's just a separate stage.
You could make an argument that we really don't get to see a lot of Pirates Cove. Like the camera's on Foxy, but at the same I don't think there's enough room. It's cool though. But yeah, you're right. That's an observation I always made. That like, you know, Freddy is the face of the brand. And also like Fredbear was responsible for the bite of 83. And there's also Golden Freddy, who's like one of the most important characters in the series. Bonnie is not only the only one who actually has an instrument, but also became like the main villain later down the line with Spring Bonnie. And, you know, yeah, even in Security Breach, there's that mystery of like what happened to Bonnie. And then Foxy's always been the odd one out where like his theming's different. He has a hook. Like, to me, Foxy's the only one of the original 4 that it's very obvious how he'd kill you. Given he has like a weapon. And then, you know, Foxy was always, I think, a longtime favorite because of that. And then Foxy, you know, not only spun off into like Roxanne, but like the Mangles kind of became their own thing. Where like you have Red Foxy and then you have White and Pink Foxy. And then there's just, as you said, there's Chica. And like, yeah, Chica's always been weird because not only has there never been any like spin-offs of her, like you said, but also like she's the most left out of the main 4 because she's not in Sister Location in any form. She wasn't in the Twisted Ones, which is one of the original trilogy books. And really, she didn't have any big lore relevance until 6, where Scott like gave us the story of the kid that possesses her.
There's also the cupcake, I guess, but the cupcake, like whenever it's active, it's not with Chica, I guess.
You have to think that in the games, the only time the cupcake is like used is FNaF 4, where every animatronic has the jump scare at the door and then the jump scare in the room. Chica's jump scare in the room is like cupcake coming in to get you. And that added with the like, you know, the fact that in the trailers we're seeing like this tag team of Chica and the cupcake. It does make me wish in FNaF 1 Chica was kind of given a gimmick later in the nights where like you had to pay attention whether or not her cupcake was on her. If it wasn't, that means it is currently coming to get you. I think that would have been a cool mechanic because like not only would that require you to actually watch the cameras a little closer, but also it would have a little more, because like Freddy in FNaF 1 is always like in the shadows, and as cool and creepy as that is, his bigger thing was that like he doesn't go back when you stop him at the door. But a thing with the cupcake where you like literally cannot see it on the cameras after it's gone loose, that would have been cool. But yeah, and that's another topic I wanted to go into before we close out. Well, not like, I have like 2 things left, and this is one of them. So we've seen the missing children in the trailers.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to take the time to like characterize them? Or will they just stay as missing kids?
I think, uh, I think they will probably just be missing kids. I think they might get a little bit of focus at some point, like maybe like a flashback, or I guess depending on when the MCI happens. But I don't think they're gonna focus on the. I don't know if it's gonna matter like specifically who the kids are, except for like his brother. But I don't know. Maybe. I don't think they will.
I want them to, but I'm kind of in agreement with you just because the movie is on the shorter end of things. Like already you have to have character arcs for the main characters, but then also taking the time to explain all, because there aren't just 5 kids, there's 6 apparently. So I don't know. It might take too much time. What I hope they do and what they might do is try to characterize the kids by how the animatronics act.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a little theory in my noggin. And I know that's a bad thing to do these days. But I do have a theory. And that is, so the red eyes that we've been seeing that people don't like, that is not normal for them. What's
Mm-hmm.
normal for them is like their eyes are glowing and like yellowish. I think we've seen that too. When the eyes are yellowish, that means that the kids, like the ghosts, are in control. I feel like there's going to be a plot point that like when they're red, that means that William is like I don't know, remote controlling them or something. It's a little bit of a
Mm.
weird idea, but that could possibly make sense. Where like these kids are framed to be like vengeful and like dangerous, while really they don't want to hurt Abby or Mike. They're just
Mm-hmm.
wanting to like play with them. The problem is when William gets, because there is that scene in the trailer and some of the trailers where like the camera pans and then standing behind Mike is Freddy, but he's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
chilling there. So I wonder if that'll be a part of the movie where it's like, oh, they're moving around, but like they're friendly, and then quickly they become not friendly.
Yeah. Well, in the games, it's like in FNaF 2, I think, like there's the mention of like the animatronics behave just fine with the kids, but they hate adults. But honestly, it never really made too much sense, like why the unless like you're the killer, why like the ghost children would hate any adult. But also, it's like it's kind of complicated. I guess if you're a kid, you might just be like, man, adults kind of suck.
One of my other friends had an interesting observation that the reason why they just go after any adult is because they didn't see who the killer actually was. They just know it was an older person who did it. So now they just
Hmm.
hate all adults. I don't know. But
Yeah.
and the final section I'd like to have. It's a little bit broad, but I think it's worth asking. What do you think like the general roadmap of this movie is going to look like? Just given like what we
Uh,
know of the trailers and whatnot. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is not going to happen?
I've heard some people talk about this. And I forget who said it, but I did see someone who said like it's probably gonna start out with Mike getting fired from his old job
Mhm.
because we see like the scene of him beating someone up like in a mall or something. And like maybe he was like a security guard before and then he got fired for like maybe he like lashed out because like obviously his life isn't too great at the moment. So something happens, he lashes out at work, he gets fired, he has to find a new job. He finds the job at Freddy's. Uh and then, you know, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of plot points, I guess. It kind of depends on where they happen, like his brother going missing and like him finding the job and then when he meets all of these characters. Um I guess I more just have an idea of how the movie's probably going to start, but I don't know where it's going to go from there.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat. One of the things specifically I wanted to ask what you think. Do you think we'll get a springlock failure scene in this movie with uh, William?
I feel like it will be more implied because is this movie PG-13?
It's PG-13 in the States, but in other countries where they have like more specific ratings, the movie's rated for like 15 and up. So
I mean, murdered children is pretty dark already, but honestly, like the idea of how the springlock failures are described in the games is honestly like really violent and gory. I don't know if they would like they might just kind of imply it or like have like the screaming or something, but like I don't know, that would be a pretty crazy scene to create.
I don't know. I guess I wanted to ask this too, like the how do you think the like deaths or violence in this movie will be done? Because I know in the trailers we've seen people get attacked, presumably die, but in all of them it's like it's not necessarily off camera as it is just like obscured. I think I think if they do a springlock scene, it's going to be kind of in that same vein with like we're hearing what's happening and
Hmm.
we might see like a pool of blood forming on the ground, but they won't actually show like the full thing.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Mm.
Like I think a lot of the violence will be more like obscured, but we're not actually seeing it. Because also children getting murdered is like kind of crazy. I
Yeah,
think that would put it at being rated R in the States.
a lot of people there's a big portion of the fan base that want to fight tooth and nail of saying this is an adult series, and because of that, we need to see children dying on. I've seen people say things like that, but like not even like the Chucky movies have any kids die on screen. Like the closest we get, like we hear of kids dying, but the closest we get to a kid dying on screen is like we see what like in the first episode of the second season of the show, Chucky essentially has a bomb and he's going to blow up some people, and one of the kids takes it and runs with it, and we don't see the kid like die. We just kind of see like a zoomed out thing of the explosion. And I don't know, I think people have gone a little bit too far of wanting to like it's okay to like FNaF even if it isn't expressly an adult series. And you also don't have to prove it's an adult series by having graphic displays of children getting mutilated, and I don't know.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I-
I think most people became a fan when they were kids.
and to be fair, I do think it's a lot of like teenagers or kids who are making these claims. There is a little bit of a controversial video released a couple of years ago by someone who like tried to rewrite the story of Security Breach. And part of that rewrite was like every night Gregory comes across one of his friends that's died. And a big controversy or obvious controversy that came from that is like showing a dead kid isn't really horror. It's just kind of a distasteful thing to do.
Yeah.
And like the argument people always use is like, "Oh, this is a series about dead kids, but we've never actually seen a kid die. Why do you want to see a kid die?"
Yeah, it's already a bad thing to happen. I think we already know that it's bad.
Like, I don't know. Some people give me really bad vibes when they say things like that, cuz it's like,
Yeah.
why are you so adamant to see it? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
like
weird.
the idea, like in the first game, the idea of like when you see the stuff where it's like, oh, there was like blood and mucus dripping from the animatronics, you're like, oh, dude, that's like terrible. And you're not even seeing anything. Like, I think we're good.
Yeah, and I that's another reason why I don't want to see the kids dying on screen. Not just because that's horrible, but also because part of the fear factors we never really find out what William actually did to them. Like he could have
Mm-hmm.
stabbed them, Or maybe he killed them by way of forcing them into the animatronics. We really don't know. Like, kind of the horror comes from the unknown. And that's, like, I'm not really someone who gets scared by horror anymore. Like, I haven't been scared by FNaF in a long time. Or, like, Chucky or anything like that. But very recent, like, earlier this year, I watched... Have you seen Nope by Jordan Peele?
I haven't, but I need to.
Yeah, there's a scene in that movie where, like, they're not really showing anything. You can just kind of hear noises. And it is, like I define fear in media as, like, there's 3 tiers. There's being startled, there's being stressed out, and then there's being, like, actually
disturbed.
Yeah, disturbed.
Yeah.
And being startled is like a jump scare. It gets you in the moment, but, like, just for that moment. There's stress, which is like your nerves are kind of like, I kind of get this while playing Resident Evil 2 when... I don't know if you've seen that game, but there's this guy who basically chases you around the building, and whenever he's close, you can just kind of hear his footsteps coming closer. I'd classify that as stress because, like, in the moment, you're very tense. But once you, like, turn the game off, you're not, like, freaking out. He's still after you. That third tier of, like, actual fear, or being disturbed, as you said, is when you see something and it just kind of lingers in your brain for, like... Because that scene... And if you haven't seen the movie, I won't totally, like, give it away. But that scene stuck with me, like, for, like, a whole week. Because there's something so, like, visceral about it. And again, it's not showing anything really. Like, you can barely see what's going on. You can just hear it. And that enough is, like, okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the whole horror of FNaF to begin with. Like, the first game is a game all about information. You get stressed out when you don't know things. Like, oh, where the hell did Foxy go? Oh, he's coming down the hall now. I'm dead.
Yeah.
That fear plays into the story of, like, we know what happened, but we don't know a lot of the specifics. Like we don't even know what happens to Charlie in the alley. Like, some people say that maybe William hit her with his car. FNaF 2 would say otherwise. That's one thing I've heard. Maybe he stabbed her. Maybe he strangled her. We don't know, and I hope we never know, because it's just all the more horrifying because we aren't given an answer to, like, what happened to them. And so that leaves our brains to fill in the gaps of, like, what actually went down. But if you don't have anything to add, I think that might be a good place to end episode 1 of the Snorf FNaF podcast. We'll come up with a better name at some point. But for episode 1, putting FNaF podcast in the title might do very good for views. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
We'll see.
I'm still figuring out this YouTube thing. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, I think we got it.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see you again in another couple of weeks if I decide to keep doing this, because I like talking about FNaF without a script limiting me. And in a couple of weeks, we will have seen the movie, so maybe we can do that episode about, like, how right were we? Maybe
we gotta include our costumes in there.
Anyways, if you have nothing to add, and I don't either, it's a good place to end. So,
all right.
I guess I'll see you on the next episode, if there is one, of the Snorf FNaF podcast.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Snorfs.